edition of Collection Connection, and I don't have a good.
Hey friend, welcome to another Collection Connection. The game is just an excuse to talk about records. Let's see, on Eric's last play, Eric, my brother Eric from the Plastic Soundwave Cult, the guy who I played the game with, he played Biffy Clyro's Ellipsis album, which I listened to. I think he had played me a little bit of it in the opening track. Gosh, now I forget what it's called, Wolves of Winter or something like that. Kind of set me on a wrong path on what I thought it was going to be. But I think he was pretty on the money when he compared it to kind of a slick rock like a Goo Goo Dolls. Kind of made me think a little of Toad the Wet Sprocket. Kind of mellowed as it went along. And the version I listened to had a few bonus tracks at the end. And by the time I got to the bonus tracks, I was pretty into it. It was not bad. Nothing I would own necessarily, but it was not a bad listen. And Eric said in the course of his video that although few people have heard of Biffy Clyro in the States, that he suspected that they were big in England, being a Scottish band. And so I looked up some info on them, and in fact Ellipsis and a couple other of their albums were #1 records in the UK, while not charting at all in the US. And so I thought perhaps there would be a possible connection maybe with some of those 80s bands that caught on first, like the Smiths, you know, in the UK, in their home country. I thought maybe the first Adamant, well, not the first Adamant, Kings of the Wall Frontier, something from the 80s that was just picked up on earlier in the UK than it was in the States. But all those albums had charted, so I needed three things. I needed an album that was #1 in the UK, an album that did not chart in the US, and an album that I actually owned. So I skated through the whole list of #1 albums for the 80s, and there was definitely others that met two of those criteria. There are bands like Slade and Shawady Waddy and Shakin' Stevens that are practically institutions in England. That never really made any noise whatsoever in the US, but I don't have anything by those acts. And it took until the 90s to find a connection, and my connection of an album that was a #1 album in the UK but did not chart at all in the US is Blur's Parklife. Now this is like a seminal Britpop album, really sort of established the Blur versus Oasis, you know, who's best thing, which always rang a little false here on this side of the Atlantic, because Oasis was big here too. And even after they made some noise, which didn't happen until really song 2 in the late 90s, and even that was not a terribly high charting album, their self-titled album Blur. Oasis was a very big band in the US, and Blur wasn't, so the fact that there was this raging debate seemed oddly one-sided. But I picked up on them from the song Country House, and so The Great Escape, the album following Parklife, is the first album that I got from Blur. And I think it was later when I was working at Borders at the end of the 90s, and I'd probably already gotten the self-titled album as well, that Boys and Girls really kind of got in my head. A few big UK classics that had sort of passed me by when they were current started catching up to me. Some songs by Supergrass and Pulp, and some early Blur work. And I couldn't get Girls and Boys out of my head, so I picked up Parklife then, probably around the year 1999, 2000. And it's good stuff. I don't know that I totally let it sink in like ever. I picked up the Boys and Girls, threw it on some playlists, and maybe one or two other tracks. But It's actually surprisingly all over the map sonically. You know, a lot of Britpop, especially Blur's style of Britpop, makes me think of like Madness, post-ska. It has a sort of a bounce to it and is very English, but not in the Kinks way, sonically. And Damon Albarn, who I should say, I just once described his singing style as "You woke me up for this," which my oldest liked and quotes back to me often, so it made me feel funny. So it's really a wide array of styles, almost a dizzying array of styles, from the sort of the oompa instrumental, which one is that? Is that the Bank Holiday, I think, to a song like Bad Head, which sounds like it could have come from the Great Escape era, Girls and Boys, and gosh, I'm losing the tracks already in my head, but things that were very sort of new wavy still, and a little synth poppy, to something like This Is a Low, which is a fantastic song. It feels a lot of ways like it beats Radiohead to the punch from OK Computer, and it almost feels like a Bowie song at times. It's like very raw and emotional, and it's probably the song that I'll throw onto our playlist, which you can click on in the description, or I think I put it in at the end of the video, but neither here nor there. But then they follow up this epic, harrowing song with a totally cheeseball instrumental in Lot 105 that's very, you know, it's very elevator music. I don't know. So it's a vast array. It is. I think they got a little more refined, a lot more refined on The Great Escape, and then more adventurous again through their later albums. And of course, Damon Albarn was in a ton of bands, but most notably Gorillaz, which tried a lot of new things. But yeah, I think I've run well over my time here, and so I will throw that back. Hopefully you'll enjoy it if it's not one that you know. It's a quintessential Britpop album, huge record in the UK, and so yeah, once more, Blur's Park Life, I think from 1994, if I recall. And so you can look for Eric's response to this video on Monday, and I will see you next Thursday. And if you made it all the way to the end, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.